Hey everybody, this is Mrs. Skippers and I'm so excited to get to teach a science lesson with you today. This is for first grade students. We are going to be learning about the moon and how to observe the moon. So let's get started. So all of the resources that are in this video you can find online under the Student Resources tab on the KCS website, and you just click on the folder that says Week 2 Packet, and you can download and print any of the paper pieces that are in this video, or there will be printed copies that will be available for pickup on Monday mornings from 10 to noon at your meal distribution sites. So what are we going to learn today? I love science, don't you? So we're going to learn all about the moon, and if we're talking about the moon, we're also probably going to talk about this great big ball down here. What is this thing right here? Yes, it's our Earth, right? This is where we live. And this little tiny ball that's up here in the corner, that is what? Yes, that's the moon. Okay, so we're going to make predictions about the moon and what it's going to look like in the sky, and I'm sure you talked about predictions with your teachers when we were in class. And remember, a prediction is just a guess about something, using an educated guess, right? Using the facts that you know already. And we're going to observe in the night sky how the moon changes. So we're going to get a chance to do that with our families. And we're going to mostly be focusing on how the moon looks different each night when we look at it. And those are called the phases of the moon. So how will we know at the end of this lesson if we learned what we were supposed to? Well, at the end of the lesson, we're going to be able to draw what the moon looks like at night, all of the different forms that it might take. We're also going to be able to talk about the moon and write about the moon and how it looks different over a period of time. So let's get started, shall we? So let's think about what we know already as scientists. Okay, how many of you have ever watched the moon at night or seen it if you're, taking a walk or you're driving in the car with your folks? Me, I love to look at the moon. It's so pretty. And have you ever noticed that it can look different, can it? It's not always exactly the same, and sometimes you can't even see it if it's a really cloudy day. So let's talk a little bit about the moon, okay? Did you know that the moon has no water? Wow. No air to breathe, and no living things on it at all. In fact, it's made of a rock, and all it has on it are craters, which are big holes or dips in the moon's surface. It has big mountains, and it also has valleys, those dips down. That's all you're going to see if you're there. These dark spots that are over here, I always think those are so interesting when you see those. Those are called Maria, and they're where volcanoes once erupted on the surface of the moon. I think that's so cool. So remember we talked about with your teachers this year that the moon is orbiting our planet. So think about what that word orbit means. I'm going to give you a minute. Do you know? Yes, it means it's moving around our planet at the same time that our planet is revolving around what? Yes, the sun. So most planets in our solar system have moons that orbit around them. Some of them even have more than one moon. That's pretty cool, huh? So why can we see the moon? Well, sunlight shines on the part of the moon that is facing the sun as it is orbiting the Earth. So that's the part that we see in the night sky on a clear night because it's reflecting, the moon is reflecting the sun's light. It doesn't give off light of its own, right? So look at some of these pictures. I think this is really cool. I found these pictures because they show some of the different ways that the moon might look. It's all the same moon, but they don't look the same, do they? We see different shapes, we see different colors. Sometimes it appears to be a different size. And sometimes, like this picture with the airplane down here at the bottom over there, sometimes you can even see the moon during the daytime. So why is this? Let's find out. So how does the moon's shape change from day to day? Do you think it's actually changing shape, like getting bigger and changing its shape? You're right. The changes we see are because the moon is actually changing its position in the sky. Remember how we talked about the moon is orbiting around the Earth? Okay, so it's spinning around the Earth like this, revolving. And so each time it's in a different position, we see something different here on Earth. So if you look at this picture over in the corner, you can see here's a picture of our sun, and here's a picture of our Earth. So this red orbit is the path that the Earth is taking around the sun, while at the same time, this blue path is the orbit that the moon is taking around the Earth. So when the moon is moving, it's reflecting different parts. The sun is reflecting differently in each position. Okay, and if you want to, there's a little link down here that's a really cool video that you can see on YouTube, and it will tell you all about the moon orbiting the Earth and why we see those different phases. So you can click on that or paste it into have your mom or dad paste it into the browser, and you can watch that video. It's really cool. I enjoyed watching it. So today we're going to be a special kind of scientist called an astronomer. Can you say that word? Astronomer. Yes, awesome. Have you ever heard of an astronomer before? Yeah? Yeah, they're a special kind of scientist that studies objects in the sky by observing them. Now there's that word, observe again. We talked about that. And all scientists like to observe. Remember, they look at things or they use their senses to find out more about them. And scientists take notes, write things down, draw pictures to help them answer questions that they might have. So it's important that an astronomer studies the sky over several days to see if there's any changes. Because if we were just looking the sky on one night, that's not going to give us all the information we want, right? So we're going to have to go back and look at the night sky over several days to chart any changes and see what's different about it or the same. So our job is going to be to see how the moon changes each night. So we're going to be like this astronomer down below me here. This is Haley, the astronomer. We're going to be like her. So we're going to think about how the moon looks. Okay, so we're ready to learn about the moon's phases. And a phase is how it changes, how it looks different from one night to the next in our sky. So we're going to have a chance to observe the moon. Remember, that means look at it and see what it looks like in the night sky. And you're going to just record what you see on a piece of paper. Now, this piece of paper that's right here came from our science textbook at school, and I know you don't have that at home, and that is okay. You can get any piece of paper at all and just draw what the moon looks like when you go out tonight. Now, make sure you go with an adult, don't go by yourself, and if it's not clear enough, you might have to wait till the next night. Like if it's a rainy day, you might have to wait till the next day to be able to do that. And then you can come back to this video and we will see what you found out. Okay, so I'll see you tomorrow. Okay guys, we're back. Did you get a chance to see? I know I did. So I hope that you had a family member with you, because that's what you were supposed to do, right? You could have taken a brother or a sister or a mom or dad or grandma and grandpa, whoever you live with at home. And did you guys see the same thing? If you were looking at the same moon last night, it should look the same, right? So why do you think the moon looked the way it did? That's a good question that an astronomer needs to know. So remember, the moon phases are caused by the position of the Earth. So where is the Earth in space? Position of the moon and the position of the sun. So if you got a chance to watch that video that I gave you the link to yesterday, you should be able to answer that question. So you might want to pause the video and talk a little bit with your family member about why you think you saw what you saw last night in the night sky. Okay, so depending on where it is in its lunar cycle, there's actually 8 different phases of the moon that repeat themselves each month. It's a pattern that you can actually see in the sky. Isn't that cool? So that's what we're going to be doing, is seeing if we can find out what that pattern is throughout this next month. So as good scientists and good astronomers, we need to make sure that we are have lots of good facts to help us to answer our questions, right? So we know that in school, a lot of times we like to read passages about things that we're learning about, some nonfiction passages. And so I found one here called The Earth and the Moon, and I thought we could read it together, okay? So let's go over and find where the title is over here. It says Earth and the Moon. Okay, and we're gonna read this first paragraph right here. You can read it with me, okay? The moon is a ball of rock that moves around Earth. It takes about a month for the moon to go once around the Earth. And that's where they're talking about that orbit. So here's a picture we can see of the Earth and the moon. Okay, so this part's in shadow because the sun is not lighting up that part of the moon, so we can't see that. That's the dark side of the moon that we're looking at here in this picture. So let's come down here in this next paragraph. Like the sun, the moon appears to move across the sky. It's in its orbit, right? The moon does not make its own light. We learned that. It looks bright because light from the sun is shining on it. Let's go over to this next page. As the moon moves around Earth, the lit part of the moon that we see changes. So that's important, right? The moon isn't changing, just the part that's lit up is changing. This is why the moon seems to have different shapes. So it says it seems to have different shapes. It doesn't mean that it is a different shape, correct? And I like this picture right here because it shows how different parts of the moon are in shadow depending on where it is in its orbit. The different moon shapes that we see each month are called phases. Can you say that word? Phases. Good job. The phases of the moon repeat in the same pattern every month. And we talked about that a little bit earlier. You can use a telescope. Have you ever seen one of those? It's a tool that astronomers use to be able to see things that are far away in the night sky. It makes it look like they're up close, kind of like we use a magnifying glass. A telescope is a tool that helps you see objects with more detail. You can see them like you're much, much closer to them. A telescope can help you even see craters on the moon. Remember we talked about craters, and there's a picture of one there. Craters are those holes that were made in the moon's surface from crashing asteroids or meteorites, and they just crashed right into the moon and made those big holes. Okay, so now it's going to be time for you to put on that astronomer hat, right? Get your pretend telescope, and you're going to head on out and make some moon observations. So we did this once. You got to go out and see the moon on one night. But remember how we talked about that in order to get enough information, you have to observe that night sky over several nights, so not just one. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take what you've learned about the moon and you're going to use it for another investigation. You're going to get a chance to predict how the moon will change during the month. Okay, so we've kind of talked about it. It's not going to look exactly the same every single night you look at it. And you're going to record and write down what it looks like each night. Okay, you're going to use your Be a Scientist notebook page that you can get on the KCS website that we talked about at the beginning, or you can just use any piece of paper. That's fine too. And you can make predictions and carry out your investigation. Don't forget to chart and draw what you see every night, because you're going to see lots of things in a month, right? And you're going to forget unless you write it all down. See if you can answer the questions when you are done. And most of all, as a scientist and astronomer, have fun, because that's the most important part, right? And I'll be doing this with you. I'm excited. So these are what the pages look like, the Be a Scientist notebook pages. There's a little inquiry activity. It says you will investigate how the moon changes during the month. We talked about that. You get to make a prediction first about how the moon will change during the month. So you can draw a picture, write a sentence, or just tell somebody at home what you think is going to happen. Okay, and then you're going to actually get to carry out your investigation and see if your prediction was right, or if there's anything you want to change about your prediction at the end of the month. So make sure that you look at the moon every night for 1 month. If it's a cloudy night, you can just X that one out on your chart if you couldn't see it. Okay? Make sure you never go alone. Make sure you have a grown-up with you all the time when you go out. Okay? So on this middle sheet here with the boxes, that's where you're going to record all of your information. You get to draw a picture of what you see each night. So what I would do is I would just go to that circle or that box, draw a circle with my pencil or crayon, and then I can shade in or color in the part that's in shadow. Okay? If I see the whole thing, if it's a full moon, then I wouldn't color anything in, right? And then you can label each drawing at the top with the date. Okay, so let's say it was April 22nd. You could put that up at the top or have a grown-up help you with that. Okay, so that way you know what the moon looked like on each night that you observed it. And then finally, once you fill in your whole calendar for the whole month, the third sheet that's up here, you get to communicate the information that you learned, because that's what scientists do, is they want to share that knowledge, right? So there are 2 questions at the end that, again, you can write or draw your answer, or you can just verbally say that to an adult in your house, okay? And then this is just something kind of fun at the very end. Once you do all your moon phases, you can make your own model. Okay, so again, this piece of paper can be downloaded from the website. It can be picked up at the meal distribution site, or you can just draw one your own. That's totally fine. So there's a picture of the Earth in the middle, and then the picture of the moon. It looks like there's a whole bunch of moons, right? But we know there's just one. But this is just showing the 8 different phases and how it can look as it rotates around the Earth. So over on the right here, you can see all the phases and the names of those. These are what we saw in the video as well. And you can draw the order or the pattern that the moon phases go through on your model. And you can use that to teach someone as well. And finally, if you're like me, once you start thinking about space and the moon and the planets and the stars, you just can't stop, and you have more questions and things that you want to answer. So you remember the lady in the video that we watched earlier? Well, she wrote this book called Next Time You See the Moon. Her name is Emily Morgan, and she has given us permission to be able to access her book online, and it's being read to you on YouTube on this link. And again, you can either click on that link, and if that doesn't work for you, you can just copy and paste that link into your browser, and you can listen to that book being read to you. And it has lots of really neat information that I think you will enjoy. I know I did when I read it. So thanks so much for joining us today. I'm so excited that you came to learn with me. I love science, and I am so glad that you do too. I miss all of you so much, especially those firsties that are in my classroom. Missed seeing your smiles and getting your hugs every day, and I know all of your teachers are feeling the same way I am, and we can't wait to be back at school and learning with you in person as soon as we possibly can. Okay? Bye guys. Thanks for visiting today.